Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We're going to give everyone a minute to join. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. Thank you so much for joining. All right. We will go ahead and get started. I don't want to waste anyone's time. So let me just start by saying thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to join today's 2025 Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan public listening session. We're really excited to share some information with you about the newest public comment period and also answer any questions that you guys might have. My name is Isabella Espinoza, and I work for ERG, which is a contracting firm helping the Long Island Sound study out with this project. So a little bit of quick information on Zoom. Uh, we have the chat available for technical difficulties. We have the Q&A that will be open at any time during the presentation where you can put in questions for our panelists who are members of the Long Island Sound study team and the writing teams who have been working directly on the comprehensive management plan. You can turn on closed captions at any time, and if you are struggling, if the audio settings are not working, you can switch to audio on your phone, which I'm going to put in the chat right now. Okay, so next we will just go over the agenda really fast. So basically, we're gonna have a brief overview of the Long Island Sound study, followed by an overview of the 2025 Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan, CCMP, and the revision process, an overview of the draft CCMP content, followed by instructions for public comment, and we're going to end with the question and answer period where we will take your questions. Please feel free to put questions in at any time during the presentation, but we might end up saving them all till the end, just in case we cover something that you're asking during the presentation. That way we can spend time at the end answering the questions that weren't answered by the presentation. But definitely feel free to put your questions in. And if you can, please use the Q&A for questions and the chat for technical difficulties. That way it's a little bit easier for us to monitor. But if not, we will try to pull your questions out of the chat as well. So now I'm going to pass it over to Mark for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Isabella, and thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. I'm Mark Tedesco. I'm director of the Environmental Protection Agency's Long Island Sound office. We help support and administer the Long Island Sound Study Partnership, and we're really here today to help orient you to comment on a draft of a new comprehensive and conservation management plan for Long Island Sound. So today, October 1st, is the first day of the federal 2025 fiscal year. And so it's exciting to think about a 2025 plan for Long Island Sound and carry us forward for the next decade. Before passing it on, I do want to just say how important it is to us to hear your feedback, to hear your comments. So I would just encourage, if you are wondering whether to submit formal comments, if there's something that you're thinking about, please submit them. Force us to be responsive to what you value, what you're concerned about, what you think is important. We'll respond to each and every comment. So as you'll see today, there's a great team that's worked really hard on preparing the draft, and nothing could be more welcoming even to them than to hear your thoughts on that plan and ways that we can improve it before we submit it for as our final plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki Tachiki, who's with the EPA Long Island Sound Program, to get us started. So, Nikki.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon. So I'll start quickly with a brief background on the water body that brings us all here today, which is the Long Island Sound. It is 110 miles long, 21 miles at its widest point, and 1,300 square miles in area. It has over 600 miles of coastline, and Long Island Sound is an estuary, a place where saltwater and freshwater mix. 90% of freshwater comes from 3 rivers in Connecticut, the Housatonic, Connecticut, and Thames rivers. And the Sound has openings to the sea at both its western end through its connection with the East River and at its eastern end at the Race. In total, the Long Island Sound watershed, or drainage basin, drains an area of more than 16,000 square miles, covering virtually the entire state of Connecticut, portions of New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire, as well as a small area at the source of the Connecticut River in Quebec. Just a brief background on who we are as the Long Island Sound Study Partnership. EPA, New York, and Connecticut formed the Long Island Sound Study in 1985 as a bi-state partnership consisting of federal and state agencies, user groups, concerned organizations, and individuals dedicated to restoring and protecting the Sound. With the Clean Water Act amendments in 1987, Section 320 of the Clean Water Act officially established a national estuary program. At the request of the states of Connecticut and New York, Long Island Sound was officially designated as an estuary of national significance under this new program. Congress created this program and authorized it to carry out the activities listed under Clean Water Act Sections 119 and 320. On our slide here, you'll see logos of all of our Long Island Sound Study partners and organizations, and we do have a number of representatives from these organizations on the call today. Another quick background slide on how Long Island Sound Study coordinates as a program and how we operate. We do have a number of committees and work groups. Our first committee is our policy committee, which consists of EPA Region 1 and 2 administrators, as well as the New York and Connecticut environmental commissioners. Next, we have our executive steering committee, which consists of EPA division directors, New York State DEC assistant commissioners, and the Connecticut DEEP bureau chief. Our management committee consists of federal, state, interstate, and local partners. And then starting from the lower left part of the slide, we have 2 advisory committees. The first is our Science and Technical Advisory Committee, which consists of academia, scientific, and technical organizations, and they counsel our program on scientific and technical issues. Next, we have our Citizens Advisory Committee. It is a cross-section of stakeholder groups, and they focus on transmitting stakeholder concerns. They provide advice on public education activities, and they communicate with constituencies. Next, we have the Long Island Sound Program Office and Implementation Team. And their core function is program coordination, project management, and providing some support to our various committees and work groups. And lastly, we have our technical work groups. We have work groups focused on the topics of climate change and sentinel monitoring, environmental justice, habitat restoration and stewardship, communications, outreach and engagement, nitrogen coordination, sustainable and resilient communities, watersheds and embayments, water quality monitoring, and federal partners coordination. So jumping to the reason why we're here today, our 2025 Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan, or CCMP for short, has been published for a 60-day public comment period spanning September 23rd through November 22nd. So what is the Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan, or CCMP for short? It is the plan that outlines goals, objectives, and actions to restore and maintain the health of Long Island Sound and its watershed, which is the lands and waterways that drain into the Sound. And who uses the CCMP? The Long Island Sound Study uses it to guide our conservation work around Long Island Sound. The original CCMP of our program was published in 1994. And it was the primary plan that we used to guide our activities and our funding of our program. We went through a major revision of the CCMP in 2015, and the 2015 CCMP set the course of action over the next 20 years and identified 20 ecosystem targets to achieve. The 2015 revision maintained an emphasis on water quality and habitat protection and restoration, and it added emphasis on public involvement and engagement, climate resiliency, and environmental justice. And now, 10 years later, we are going through another major revision of the CCMP, which we plan to publish in 2025. Just a few quick accomplishments to share that have been achieved by the program under our current CCMP. Long Island Sound Study partners have restored over 2,102 acres of coastal habitat and opened over 429 river miles for migratory fish passage. Since the 2000 nitrogen total maximum daily load, Connecticut and New York cut more than 47 million pounds of nitrogen annually from point sources alone. Nitrogen management actions have decreased the 5-year rolling average in the maximum area of hypoxic waters by 54% compared to the pre-2000 average of 205 square miles. And the Long Island Sound Stewardship Initiative is working to protect and enhance 33 flagship coastal preserve sites in Connecticut and Long Island, New York, promoting public access, education, and passive recreation. So our CCMP is being revised, and the new plan will be published in 2025. It will outline goals, objectives, and actions to restore and maintain the health of Long Island Sound and its watershed. The plan will have objectives to be achieved in the next 10 years and actions to be accomplished over the next 5 years. And we do view this CCMP revision as an opportunity to expand engagement and commitment to restoring and maintaining the health of Long Island Sound. Some notes about how we got to this process in the CCMP development. Really starting in early this year, our Long Island Sound Study partners began drafting goals and objectives. They developed ways to measure conservation progress for the draft CCMP. In the spring, we held public engagement sessions. So our program held 3 virtual engagement sessions and 3 in-person engagement sessions open to the public, with the purpose of listening to and collecting thoughts, concerns, and ideas for the plan's development. Using all of that public engagement feedback in the summer of this year, Long Island Sound Study partners developed actions to achieve the goals and objectives that were drafted earlier in the year. And that really brings us to today, where we are now having our public information session and our public comment period. In the following slides, we will present an overview of the CCMP content and provide instruction on how to submit your comments. But first, a few important notes. Long Island Sound Study partners will be presenting information on what you will find in the completed draft plan. Because we are in the 60-day public comment period of the plan, it is important that we receive all public comments in writing. We will leave time for questions at the end of this presentation, but we will not be taking notes on the comments shared during this information session. Instead, we will be encouraging you to submit your written comments so we can have a record of them. The Long Island Sound Study will synthesize and publish all public comments we receive during this 60-day public comment period, and we will publish a response to every public comment. So it's important that you provide your input in writing to us during this time. So now we'll dive into the content of the CCMP. Here's a brief snapshot of the table of contents. So you'll see the sections in our draft CCMP. Section 1 is our introduction. Section 2 has our revised vision statement, mission statement, values, and goals. Section 3 is our monitoring plan. Section 4 contains our funding strategy. And then we have our references, our glossary, our acronyms list, followed by a number of appendices, and these are meant to provide additional background information and description on our program. In the following slides, we'll really drill down into Section 2 of the draft CCMP. Starting with our revised vision statement, which is Long Island Sound and its watershed have clean waters, healthy habitats, thriving wildlife, resilient coasts, and an engaged public. Our mission statement is the Long Island Sound Study leads a collective effort to restore and care for the sound and its watershed. Our CCMP has values to guide the operation and activities of our program. These include actionable science, respect and trust, environmental justice, and adaptive and inclusive management. And our CCMP contains 4 overarching goals. These include clean waters and healthy watersheds, thriving habitats and abundant wildlife, sustainable and resilient communities, and informed, engaged public. Each goal has objectives, which are specific outcomes to be achieved by 2035 that will directly contribute to the goal. And each goal also has actions, which are broad strategic activities to be taken in the next 5 years to achieve an objective. So now I'll invite Long Island Sound Study partners Kelly Strike and Tim Hunter to speak more about Goal 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tim Hunter. I'm one of the writing team leads for the Clean Waters and Healthy Watershed goal. I currently work for Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of our goal and our objectives that we as a writing team came up with. As an overarching strategy, we decided to identify 4 types of pollutants that are of concern for Long Island Sound. Those pollutants are nutrients, pathogens, toxic contaminants, and marine debris. And we created objectives around those different types of pollutants. And then we created one more objective called watershed health, which is an overarching, all-encompassing consideration of the watershed and its health, of Long Island Sound Study's watershed and its health. Now to dive into each objective, we'll go from left to right just for simplicity. Our nutrient objective is to reduce nutrients across the watershed in order to restore and protect water quality. And now Long Island Sound Study has made some progress in this, but there's still some room left for improvements. Our next objective is watershed health. And for this objective, we want to improve the ecosystem health of Long Island Sound and its watershed through conservation and positive land use practices. So this is our watershed health objective, where we're going to focus more on the land aspect of the watershed and what we can do to improve water quality through these positive land use practices. Our next objective is pathogens. So pathogens, we're basically referencing harmful bacteria and viruses that can get into the water from things like sewage overflow or stormwater runoff. And we want to reduce our pathogens and increase our monitoring in order to protect water quality and human health. And then our next objective is toxic contaminants. It's more of a research focused, forward-looking objective, where we want to research, monitor, and assess emerging and legacy contaminants in order to mitigate the impacts on water quality and health in Long Island Sound. So this is looking forward into effects of PFAS, but also looking at mercury and other legacy contaminants. And then our last objective is probably the most visible objective for most people here, and that's marine debris. So plastic bags, bottles, fishing gears, we want to try to reduce the amount of marine debris throughout Long Island Sound through cleanups, but also intercepting technologies and preventing trash from making it to the sound. And I encourage you guys, go look through the documents. This is just a brief overview. Look closely into supporting documents and make specific comments on areas that you want to see and things that you think we missed. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tim. And now we have Long Island Sound Study partners Diava Lambert, Harry Yamalis, and Sarah Cernadas Martin to speak about Goal 2.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Tim and Kelly. And thank everyone else for joining. Can you guys hear me okay? Getting no confirmation in my video
Yes,
or audio.
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm on my iPad this time. My laptop wasn't cooperating, so I had to scramble and log into this, but I can give the presentation right now. Thanks again. My name is Harry Mollis. I work for the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and the Land and Water Resources Division, where the state's Coastal Management Office is housed. And I'm one of the co-chairs for the Long Island Sound Studies Habitat Restoration and Stewardship Work Group. My fellow co-chairs are Diava Lambert, also for Connecticut, and Sarah Cernadas for New York, both of whom are in attendance today. Goal number 2 of the CCMP revision promotes thriving habitats and abundant wildlife. You can see our goal statement at the top of the slide, and our team developed 4 objectives, which you can see toward the bottom. Directly below each one is the objective statement, and each objective has a few associated actions, which you can find in their entirety in the draft of the CCMP. A summary of these actions includes, for coastal habitat, to promote the installation of living shorelines, mapping the extent of coastal habitats to look for long-term trends, and of course, to continue to restore coastal habitats. For offshore habitat, it's to promote marine spatial planning to support the Long Island Seafloor Mapping Initiative and to promote the stewardship and restoration of offshore, deeper water habitats and the conservation of species that live here. For habitat connectivity, it's to continue to connect streams to Long Island Sound through the removal of barriers such as dams and culverts, to promote regional collaborations to build regional capacity for habitat restoration, and to use remote sensing tools with field verification to target restoration and the protection of habitat patches and stream miles to maintain and enhance connectivity. Finally, for conserved open space, is to protect the high priority coastal habitat from development through land acquisition and increase access to conserved lands, particularly for underserved and overburdened communities. We also have a defined measure of success for each of the 4 objectives, and those are, from left to right, for coastal habitat, restore 1,000 acres of coastal habitat in the Long Island Sound Studies coastal boundary. Support and implement 25 restoration management projects focused on seafloor habitat mapping, data collection, and species assessments. Restore and or protect 100 habitat patches, plus reconnect 175 miles of riverine migratory corridors in the Connecticut and New York portions of the watershed. And conserve 5,000 acres of open space within the Long Island Sound Studies coastal boundary. Thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to take questions and suggestions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Harry. Next, we'll have Long Island Sound Study partners Deb Abibu, Sarah Schaefer-Brown, and Elizabeth Hornstein to speak about Goal 3.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Elizabeth Hornstein. Deb, Sarah, and myself are all Sustainable and Resilient Communities Extension professionals. We have 2 other colleagues who are not here today. And together, the 5 of us are working to support the Sustainable and Resilient Communities goal for Long Island Sound Study. The goal for the Sustainable and Resilient Communities is to empower communities to plan for and respond to environmental challenges in ways that prioritize well-being for all. We have 3 objectives under this goal that target what we see as critical areas of need: increasing the knowledge and capacity of decision makers to advance resilience initiatives, supporting planning that reflects community resilience priorities, and encouraging the implementation of sustainable projects to help communities adapt to flooding and other climate impacts. The first objective, informed decision makers, includes 2 actions. The first action is aimed at growing the number of municipal, nonprofit, and community leaders receiving training. And the second is about supporting tools, research, and monitoring to inform decision-making. Under our second objective, community-driven resilience planning, we have 3 actions focused on the development of plans, collaborating across municipal boundaries, and increasing community participation. The goal is that over the next 10 years, all 135 municipalities within the Long Island Sound coastal boundary will have identified key resilience priorities. And then finally, our third objective, resilience initiative implementation, has a goal that a minimum of 200 initiatives to improve community resilience to flooding and other environmental challenges will be implemented over the next 10 years. And we have 5 actions under this objective related to increasing capacity for implementation of projects, development and adoption of resilience codes and ordinances, nature-based solutions, infrastructure, and adaptive management to ensure long-term success. So in sum, the objectives and actions under this goal will help to advance the resilience of Long Island Sound communities to flooding and other climate impacts, and will help set the stage for sustainability into the future. And so we encourage you to take a look and look forward to hearing what you think.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And then we have Robert Berg and Maggie Cousins to speak about Goal 4.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. My name is Maggie Cousins. I am the Outreach Coordinator with Long Island Sound Study with Connecticut Sea Grant. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Robert Berg, and we were 2 of the 3 writing team leads for this goal, which is Informed and Engaged Public. This goal is generally concerned with inspiring and empowering the public to appreciate, value, and protect Long Island Sound and the waters that flow into the Sound. So within the realm of the CCMP, this is actually the newest goal. So a little bit of uncharted territory, but we have been doing lots of work within this realm for a while. Our first objective of our 3 objectives is public access and sense of belonging. So increasing and improving opportunities for everybody to access and appreciate the Sound and the waters that flow into the Sound. Some of the actions underneath this objective include adding more public access sites, making existing and new access sites more equitable and inclusive, and initiating recreation programs that encourage safe and enjoyable use of the Sound. Our second objective is education and environmental literacy. So in general, facilitating understanding of the Sound and its watershed so that folks are better positioned to make informed decisions about the watershed and actively work towards its restoration. Some actions underneath this objective include professional development workshops for teachers, working strategically with partners to initiate new education programs throughout the watershed, delivering new educational communication toolkits to informal and formal educators catered to lots of different user groups and all ages across the Sound and its watershed. And then finally, we have our last objective, which is fostering stewardship and sustainable behaviors. Essentially, this one is focused on increasing public engagement in environmental practices that protect and conserve Long Island Sound and its watershed. Some of these actions that we've developed for this objective include broadening our volunteer base, engaging those volunteers, new individuals and communities in stewardship projects, whether it's a beach cleanup or a citizen science monitoring project, and then also encouraging sustainable behaviors through the initiation of long-term behavior change campaigns. So working intentionally with communities and municipalities to deliver those campaigns to populations across the Connecticut and New York watershed. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. So we do want to encourage any and all comments related to the CCMP content that was just presented during the 60-day public comment period. We're very interested in your reflections, your thoughts, and your ideas. And we also wanted to let you know that we are taking advantage of this public comment period to ask for comments about a potential new name for the Long Island Sound Study. The logo and the name of our program have remained virtually the same since the 1980s, and you can see the progression of our logo on the slide. And we have received some feedback that it might be a good time to rename the program because the name is confusing and slightly outdated, since Long Island Sound Study is not just a study. We received feedback that it would be easier for outreach staff to explain what the program does with the new name, and that removing the word study would be a more accurate description of the sweep of the program's efforts. We do have one reason to keep the name, which is that Long Island Sound Study is a trusted name to our partners, but we are very interested in receiving public comments on a potential new name change. Just a brief background: when the management conference decided on the name Long Island Sound Study, it was really to emphasize the need to conduct science to better understand how Long Island Sound was polluted and what could be done to restore it. The partnership launched numerous scientific investigations and initiated water quality monitoring programs. The data and information that resulted became the basis for comprehensive restoration efforts. While science is still integral to the program, the management conference believes that such studies are in the service of taking action of coordinated implementation. So we are considering changing our name from the Long Island Sound Study to better reflect the commitment to action. And we have a few options that are being considered. These include Long Island Sound Estuary Partnership or Program, Long Island Sound Restoration Initiative, and Long Island Sound Restoration Partnership or Program. So now to cover one of the most important takeaways of our session today is how to provide public comments. There are two ways in which you can provide your public comments to us. The first is to fill out our CCMP public comment form, and we will drop the link in the chat momentarily to our public comment form. The second way to submit your comments is to send an email to us at longislandsoundplan2025@gmail.com. And we do invite you to send us your comments anytime from now through midnight, November 22nd. At this point, we would like to switch to our CCMP public comment form just so that you can be aware of what to expect when you go to the link. And Isabella, would you mind zooming in just a little bit, please? Perfect, thank you. So the top of our form really just has some background information that would be helpful to read through. I'll specifically call out, we are asking for specific comments on the revised vision statement, mission statement, goals, objectives, and actions in the plan. And a reminder that we will post all of our public comments and responses to all of our public comments at longislandsoundstudy.net/plan by early 2025. We do ask that when you provide comments, please be constructive and specific. Where possible, please provide detailed suggestions for rewording or expanding sections of the draft plan. And please reference specific sections or page numbers that you would like to see modified so we can implement your edits in the appropriate places. And we also ask that you be respectful. Please explain your views as clearly as possible and avoid the use of any profanity, personal threats, or disrespectful language. So moving to the questions of the plan, one thing to note is that all of the questions in this form are optional, except for the first three questions, which focus on just your name and whether you're representing any organizations as you submit these comments. So moving down to question 5, where some of the content questions start. We have an opportunity, you have an opportunity to provide your thoughts on our name change. We do list the options we are considering, and we invite you to share with us if you prefer one option over the other. You're free to state any rationale for why you might advocate for one name over the other. Question number 6 is an opportunity to provide feedback on our vision statement, mission statement, or values. We'd like to know generally if you're in favor of them. If you feel anything is missing, let us know, and just please be as specific as possible. For question number 7, do you have any comments on our 4 goals statements? You might recall that our Long Island Sound City partners presented on the statements associated with each of the 4 overarching goals, and we'd like to know just generally if you are supportive of them or if you feel any should be modified to be improved. Question 8, are there any topics or issues that are not addressed in the 4 goals that you think should be included? Here, we're specifically interested if there are any topics or concerns or issues that you have that you think are a priority that you don't think fall under the 4 overarching goals of our draft CCMP. Question number 9, are the objectives and actions for Goal 1, Clean Waters and Healthy Watersheds, clear? Is there anything you disagree with, anything you would modify, or anything missing that you think should be answered? We just ask here that you be as specific as possible. If you have a suggestion, please reference the specific objective or the specific action that you're referring to, along with the page number, again, so we can be sure to implement your change, suggested change in the appropriate places. Questions 10, 11, and 12 are identical, except it's an opportunity to comment on each of the goals 1 through 4. Moving on to question 13, do you have any comments on the monitoring strategy? You'll find our monitoring strategy in section 3 of the draft CCMP. And question 14 asks for any comments on our funding strategy, which can be found in section 4 of our draft CCMP. And then the last question is really a catch-all. Do you have any comments on the draft plan that you wish to share? If you weren't able to address any of your priorities, comments, or concerns in questions 1 through 14, this is an opportunity to do so. With that, just a reminder to please submit your comments either through the form that we've just shared or by emailing longislandsound2025@gmail.com. We are accepting any and all comments from now through midnight of November 22nd. And now I'll turn it back over to Isabella to start our Q&A.
All right. So I already have some questions coming in the Q&A and the chat. If you joined late, we have the Q&A box available to submit questions, and we ask that you submit them there instead of in the chat, though I will be pulling the questions that have made it into the chat. Questions may include clarifying questions on the public comment process and clarifying questions on the draft content. If you have specific questions about something in your region or area, please feel free to email the LIS email, the Long Island Sound email, and someone can get back to you. We are not accepting comments during this webinar. All comments must be entered through the email form. This is so that we can track them. All comments receive a direct answer. They become posted on the website. So in order for us to keep track of that, we ask that all comments are submitted through the form or through the email. And I will share the email in the chat at the end. So the first question is, will we receive a comments received notification? Someone said they sent a public comment but didn't receive a confirmation back. My understanding is from the email we do not send comments received email back. And the form, I'm assuming, tells you when it's completed. But you will be able to check on the website, and eventually all comments that are sent will be posted with an answer. Does anyone want to add anything to that? Did I miss anything? Okay. And the other one is, can you please share the presentation following this gathering? It is my understanding that a recording of this webinar along with the PDF of the presentation will be shared on the website. But again, I want to confirm that that's correct. Yep, okay. All right. And then someone wrote in the chat, I am unclear as to the geographic scope of the Long Island Sound study and goals. Goal 1 sounds like it could be watershed wide, but not clearly articulated, while other goals specifically indicate the 135 communities within the coastal boundary. Can you please specify? Mark or Nikki, do you want to take this one? I'm also going to stop sharing.
Well, yeah, I would just say that it depends a little bit. And Tim, I see your hand up, so I'm going to turn it over to you. It does depend a little bit on the goal area, so it can vary. And Tim, maybe you want to comment. This was an item certainly for your goal group, and maybe share your perspective.
Yes, thanks, Mark. So basically each objective and each goal might have different geographic scopes. Goal 1 was we were specifically targeting watershed wide because we wanted to incorporate basically the entirety of the watershed of Long Island Sound. So from Long Island all the way up to Vermont and New Hampshire. We wanted to incorporate that because that does play into the water quality and the health of the sound. But there are other goals and objectives that are specifically coastal. I believe Habitat has quite a few that are specifically coastal because it's the coastal habitat that is most affected by Long Island Sound study. So in short, it depends on the goal and the goal and the objective, and each one should be spelled out more specifically if you go through the document.
Great, thank you so much for that. Our next question is, can you please explain how the proposed goals have changed since the 2015 comprehensive plan?
Nikki, do you want to start on that?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. I think we can share that the overarching bins have remained largely the same, with a big exception of in our 2025 draft CCMP, we have an informed and engaged public goal. That goal did not exist in our 2015 CCMP. In the 2015 version, we had a goal for sound science and inclusive management. So that's the biggest difference. All of the other overarching bins do remain the same. And we'll note that the sound science and inclusive management goal, a lot of thought went into how to really preserve those goals for our program. And we would suggest you read our values. You might recall that we do now have values, which we didn't have before, and these include actionable science and adaptive and inclusive management. So while sound science and inclusive management is no longer a goal of the plan, I think we hope that you will see those principles and those goals carried out through the values and in other areas of the plan.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for the questions we've had so far. We don't have any right now, but I'm going to leave it open in case people have thought of questions while some of them have been answered. I want to also add a thank you for the questions being related to the plan and the comment period.
Isabel, I saw Harry's hand up earlier. He may want to add some nuance, just talking about the habitat section and the geographic scope.
Yeah, that's correct. Geez, sorry, my dog's down there. Oh, sorry. Adding to Tim's response about coastal habitat, yes, all of our habitats, including land acquisition, must be within the Long Island Sound Study coastal boundary, except fish passage. If we're doing fish passage like dam rule or fish ladder, in Connecticut, it can be statewide. In New York, it's limited to their watershed. It's a much bigger state, and all of our watershed drains Long Island Sound, and only a fraction of New York drains Long Island Sound. So.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we have another question in the chat, and it is, with the emergence of offshore wind development, is the likelihood of transmission cables being laid in the sound factored into the new plan? I'm not sure which goal is most appropriate to answer that. Dava.
Hi. So to answer that question, yeah, the plan does while it doesn't specifically call out transmission cables being placed in the sound, one of our objectives is offshore habitat. And the studies that are included in offshore habitat, the actions that will be addressed under that objective include studies to continue researching the seafloor habitat of Long Island Sound in order to ensure that offshore wind development occurs in areas where natural resources are sustained and the essential habitats are also not adversely affected.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone want to add to that?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to add our offshore habitat also includes an action for wildlife monitoring that might be affected by offshore habitat development as well. So it's both the seafloor and the fauna.
Excellent, thank you for adding that. Any other questions from our attendees? All right, I'll leave it open for another minute. I just want to thank everyone again for attending. I want to open it up to any of our Long Island Sound staff or writing team leads. If there's anything specific you want to share that's helpful in public comments, anything on, yeah, just basically what makes a public comment useful, and how can that really impact the plan.
Isabel, I would just, again, repeat that I would encourage if you're debating whether to submit a comment, go ahead and submit it. Force us to be responsive to you. We will answer or respond to each and every comment submitted. We'll tell you how the plan has changed in regard to that comment or why it is not changed, provide a justification for why not. Yes, the more specific your comments are, the more background information you could provide to support some recommended change that's helpful for us. It's not an absolute requirement, but it's helpful certainly for people to evaluate your input fully and do it justice. So more detail is certainly better. But any feedback, any comments are enormously helpful. We really appreciate the perspective that you have that is unique. Everyone is going to see the Long Island Sound and see the issues that are important to them from a slightly different angle and a slightly different perspective that's really valuable. And so your input really is important to us.
Great, thank you so much. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. I do, again, want to reiterate, we really appreciate everyone who took time out of their day to join this information session, and we really hope to see lots of public comments that are going to impact the plan while it's open for the next 2-ish months, a little bit less than that. Again, the deadline for that is November 22nd at midnight. And I added the Long Island Sound email and the public comment form link, as well as the link to the Long Island Sound website in the chat. One thing to note is it's easier to provide more detail if you provide a public comment using the form rather than through email, unless you're going to be providing a lot of like background information or sources, just because as we saw when Nikki went through, the public comment form really breaks down, you know, question by question, goal by goal, what we're kind of looking for. So that can be helpful for us organizing and responding efficiently. And yeah, and again, only the first 3 are required. You can go in if you only want to comment on goal 2, then you can go in and only fill out and provide feedback on goal 2. So no pressure to fill out the entire form, but the format of the form can be helpful when submitting your comment. And with that, I don't want to take up any more of anyone else's time if there are no more questions. So we can go ahead and end a little bit early today and give people back their time. And yeah, just one final thank you. The public comment process is really important, a really important part of developing the plan. So we really appreciate all of you.
Thanks, Isabella, for your help, and have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.